I'm Allie.
And I'm Becky.
We are registered dietitians that are passionate about food as medicine.
In this video, we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of nut milk, walking you through what to look for when purchasing a nut milk from the store, and going through our simple recipe for Brazil nut milk.
So I'm sure you've all heard about the variety of nut milks out there. They're all the rage in the foodie or health-minded market. In fact, in 2018, their consumer demand surpassed over $1 billion, and it only continues to rise. That was even preceding the popularity of oat milk, which is now currently kind of all of the big thing. Now, there are some pros in the consideration of nut milks. We do know that nut milks would be appropriate alternate to dairy-based milk for those that have dairy protein intolerance, lactose intolerance, or a casein inflammatory response. Also, nut milks that are unsweetened may be lower carbohydrate than dairy-based milks, and nut milks tend to be lower calorie density, exception of coconut milk.
Nut milks are also going to offer some unique antioxidants, including vitamin E, which is found in a rich source in most of the nuts that are used as the base. However, on the flip side, those nutrients and some of the minerals that these nut milks boast and advertise may be poorly absorbed due to the higher phytate content in our nuts.
Yes, so the first con is the limited bioavailability, or the fact that the nutrients in the nuts may not be absorbable. And a big nutrient of focus is our macronutrient protein. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests dairy milk to be far superior because often we're working to ensure that our children have ample protein in their diet. We know protein plays a huge role in growth, development, and a healthy immune response. And we know that nut milks generally have very limited, about a third or a quarter of the amount of protein that we would see in a dairy-containing milk.
Another problematic component of nut milks, especially those that you're going to find on the inner aisles of the grocery store or those that are used in your local coffee shop likely, is that they're going to have some additives. So if it's coming from a carton like the Pacifica nut milk line, we're usually seeing additives, binders, stabilizers to get a homogeneous texture and mouthfeel. Oftentimes there will be some preservatives in there, and we can see carrageenan, which is added to emulsify or kind of gel the nut milk. And this has been shown in studies to actually increase intestinal inflammation.
Yes, so be mindful when you're ordering from your barista at a coffee shop that dairy milk may be superior, because definitely dairy milk is going to lack those stabilizers, fillers, and additives.
The fourth con is that many of the nut milks on the market are going to be higher in carbs than dairy milk, up to 2 times higher, especially if a sweetener is added. And this is especially problematic in that oat milk that we were talking about that's ever popular.
Yes. So we'll see evaporated cane juice as an additive, and then when you're using a grain to make milk, you're starting with a starch, and so that can really create that blood sugar spike, especially when having lower fat and protein can create imbalanced blood sugar response.
So when we're purchasing a nut milk, we want to look for one that has 2 to 3, maybe 4 max ingredients. It should be the nut itself, some water, a pinch of salt, maybe a little vanilla to round things out.
Yes, and when using nut milks, be mindful that this does not serve as a source of nutritional density. Using nut milks maybe in a balanced smoothie and adding our naturally nourished grass-fed whey would be the only way to really use it as a vehicle for food as medicine.
So let's go ahead and whip up our Brazil nut milk, which is a really unique nut to use in a nut milk. I don't think you're gonna find this on the shelf in the grocery store anywhere. So we're starting with 2 cups of Brazil nuts. We've gone ahead and soaked these in water for 8 hours, upwards of overnight. And I'm going to go ahead and strain off that water now.
So the soaking and sprouting process is a great way to reduce the anti-nutrients, and typically we're talking about phytates or phytic acid. This is a compound that can interfere with the absorption of the vitamins and minerals that the nuts provide. So we already soaked and strained, and then we're gonna add those 2 cups of soaked Brazil nuts to a blender with 5 cups of filtered water. We chose Brazil nuts because they are lower in phytates than almonds. And we also know that this is a really easy nut to blend. We will do a secondary strain after we blend things together, but with such thin skins, that may not even be necessary, especially if using this as a liquid in a vehicle of a smoothie. Brazil nuts offer a rich source of selenium. So selenium is both a mineral and an antioxidant, and it really is a superstar nutrient for thyroid health and metabolism. Selenium can actually aid in converting our inactive form of our thyroid hormone T4 into the active form of the thyroid hormone free T3. And this is really what is the gas on our metabolism. We also know that selenium can regulate and recycle iodine levels, supporting thyroid health. And as an antioxidant, it prevents against oxidative stress or inflammation. So especially important for those that are dealing with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism or an inflammatory autoimmune condition in the thyroid gland.
I've got our water and our Brazil nuts happening in the blender. Important to use fresh water because we've strained off that water that contains maybe some of the phytates and anti-nutrients. And then I'm adding in here just a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. We have the option to enhance this a little further with some raw unfiltered honey. So providing a little bit of B vitamin, a little flavor complexity to kind of balance things out, and seasonal allergy support. You could also use 1 to 2 dates, or you could omit the sweetener altogether if you don't want the carb influence. And then just a pinch of Redmond real salt.
Yes, I think adding some form of sweetener is definitely going to provide a little bit of emulsification and a nice mouthfeel, so it might be something to consider and just adjust based on your metabolic flexibility.
All right, I'm gonna blend this on high and let's do it. So I've gone ahead and blended that all together on high for about 3 minutes. You really want to get a good texture there. And you can see it's nice and rich and creamy already. Now, you don't have to strain your nut milk. This is really per your personal preference and per your application. If you're using it in a smoothie, you really don't need to strain it at all. If you're using it in your coffee, you might want to strain it to get some of that texture out. So I'm just using a regular old kitchen strainer, but if you really want an enhanced texture, you can use a nut milk bag, and we'll go ahead and link one on our Amazon store.
Yes, so again, thinking back to the skins, something like a cashew or a Brazil nut milk may not need as much attention to strain, but something like an almond with those really dense fibrous hulls would be something that I'd strongly consider. So we're sure that you've learned something in this video on either the pros and cons of nut milks or things to consider in purchasing, or that you benefit from trying out this simple recipe. Leave a comment below and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Naturally Nourished podcast for bi-weekly food as medicine goodness. Cheers.
Taste it. Brazil nut milk?
Yep.
All right.
It aids in supporting the conversion. Did it snore? I'll say the selenium one.